I'm Michael McManus, and I'm talking with Dr. Roger Abrantes about scent detection, nose work, ethology, and pet dogs in general. We're going to have a very long talk. This might be cut up into different portions for you guys. I originally just wanted to talk about scent detection for my scent detection people, but I've been getting more and more questions about general dog ethology, so we might talk about that.
That's fine with me.
Yeah. So before I start asking questions, you are a PhD in evolutionary biology,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Have you spent most of your career studying canines or other animals?
No, I've studied other animals as well.
Mostly other animals?
Yes, maybe, yeah.
Okay.
I'm more known for dogs, dog training, dog behavior, because that's what's popular.
Sure.
But I've done many other things. If you see my books, I've written about ethology in general, about evolution. You see my articles are even about quantum biology.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also done marine biology,
mm-hmm.
which I like very much as well. But, you know, like everything in life, then suddenly you have a hit.
Yeah.
And dogs are number one. So
Okay.
that's what people know me for.
Okay, so that's what happened. It wasn't by your own design.
No, actually it wasn't. I never thought from the beginning that I would end up with dogs. Well, it's not bad. I don't regret that, of course. But it was definitely not by design. No.
Sure. So Wolfie, who you have here, all of our guests have had their dogs with them.
Yes.
And you have yours with you.
Yes, I have Wolfie.
Yes, and Wolfie comes from St. Louis?
Yes, Wolfie was born, well, it says in his butt that he was born in Taiwan.
Oh.
But for all purposes, he was born here in St. Louis, I think 14, 15 years ago.
Okay.
I was here giving a seminar and doing some work at the zoo. And we had a tornado that evening. And Wolfie was with me. So we survived the tornado together, and we stayed together for the rest of all my travels.
Okay.
He's been all over the world.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've seen pictures of him in different places.
Yep.
So
all over.
Awesome. So let's get into some scent detection stuff first. I work with mostly competition teams for sport, right? And you mostly work with professionals, right?
Yes.
And what kinds of things are the professionals that you work with? What are they training the dogs to look for?
Two kinds of professionals I work with. Okay, one is law enforcement that I have done a lot of work for, both with dogs and rats, the landmine detecting rats and the tuberculosis detecting rats as well, that you probably know from Apopo in Africa. And law enforcement has been basically everything, mostly canine scent detection, yes. Narcotics, explosives, police, customs. I also work with search and rescue. The ART, the Alpine Rescue Team in Switzerland, they have been all certified by me. They are an incredible good team working and saving lives whenever it's necessary. You know, it's this kind of job that you hope you don't have. They don't need you, but when they need you, you have to be ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a lot about the Apopo Rats project, because I think a lot of people, not enough people know about it. It's really, really fascinating project. But so can you tell me a little bit about that project?
Yeah. The project was started by two Belgians, Christopher Cox and Bart, who started the project, went to Africa, and Bart had rats, this kind of rats when he was younger.
He had Nambian pouched rats?
Yeah, Gambian pouched rats, yes. So he liked them
very
much.
Did he live in Africa?
No, he was in Belgium. He's from,
why did they have them there?
I don't know. I never asked him, but
okay.
But he knew them, he liked them very much, and then because they were native to Africa, it was natural kind of use them also because of logistics. You know, it's a bit of a problem if you have to transport animals forth and back. And rats are also much easier to transport than dogs. So They are smaller, they eat less, they occupy less space.
But just so people know, these aren't small, normal rats.
No, they are like these, and then a tail.
Yeah, like that, they're the size of a cat.
Yeah, they are pretty big. They have very good sense of smell, and they they're not domestic animals, but when we train them, we socialize them. Now, in the beginning, we got wild rats, and then we had to kind of tame them, socialize them a little bit as much as we could and train them. But later, with the second and third generation, we could choose the best, make a kind of breeding program.
Mm-hmm.
And they got pretty nice, pretty domestic, like, well, still not like a dog or a cat. But they are very docile, very friendly. They follow us almost like puppies, almost, not completely, but almost like puppies. Easy to train as well.
Do you have to, I really want to talk to you a lot about this idea of socializing and temperament, but maybe I should save that for the pet dog area. But do you have to get the rats at a certain age?
Yes. Those that now that are working at Apopo, they are born there. So they are under the best conditions that you can imagine, with the imprinting, socialization, early training. And it makes a difference, of course, from the first rats, which were wild rats that we had to tame. We had to try to create a relationship to them, and also teach them that they could do things with humans that were not dangerous, because you must bear in mind that they are wild animals, so they have a certain innate fear of humans. But now the new batch of rats, they are very docile, very domestic.
What would you say is the biggest difference training rats to do scent detection compared to dogs?
Well, first, the conditions are completely different. Rats are quieter. I mean, you have quiet dogs as well, but normally dogs have more activity. They're more, I wouldn't say hyperactive, but if you compare with the rats, they really look like hyperactive. Rats are very cool, very, very, very focused.
Isn't that useful?
Yeah, for the landmines, absolutely. Because around landmines or explosives, I prefer everybody quiet. I don't like so much hyperactivity.
Right.
So that is a plus, definitely. The other one is also with the landmines; they are so light that they can come closer to the mines and maybe even touch the mines without anything happening.
Do you think that the hyperactivity of dogs is useful for what they do also?
Not in scent detection, I would say no.
Okay.
My experience with scent detection is I would like really quiet dogs.
Even if you have to cover a really big area?
Yes, quiet dogs. I prefer to go slowly with explosives than to go quick and then boom, and then it's over.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's also a way of solving the problem, but that's not for me.
Yeah.
It's not the ideal way of solving the problem, you know. So, but of course, it goes quicker with dogs. Yeah. Rats are slow; they go forth and back.
Small legs.
Yeah, of course, it goes quicker with the dogs. So it depends, you know, what you want to, what kind of job you have. I would say if you go to such an airport for explosives, then you have to have a dog. You know, I would choose like a little spaniel. You know.
What about in terms of teamwork? Do you get the same level of teamwork with a rat and human as you do with a dog and human?
Depending on the circumstances, again, because when we search with rats, we have very strict instructions, standard operating procedures. We have a line actually that connects one handler to the other handler across the field, and then a ring that connects to the harness where the rat is, and then the rat moves along that line. When it comes to the other end, the handler goes one step forward. This one goes also one step forward. So the rat moves like zigzag all the way. With dogs, we don't use that. Dogs, we leave them alone, and then they have their search pattern. So it's different, but there is cooperation. Of course, there is cooperation, but a different kind of cooperation. And don't forget, we also use them in Africa for detecting tuberculosis, which was and is still a big problem. But that was done in kind of clinical conditions.
Right.
We had some cages with some holes, and then we put the samples under 10 samples, and then the rat would move from one sample to the next, and if it was a positive, it would indicate. And the indication behavior, they are two. It's normal behavior. We always try to use the normal behavior of the animal. One of them was to stick the nose into the hole and sniff it very deeply, and the other one was to scratch. So we had sniffers and scratches, as we called them, and
Right.
we allowed them to choose.
Did it seem like one was better than the other?
No, not for us. The indication was when we turned that into an indication, we wanted the rat to keep doing that for 3 seconds. 3 seconds meant a positive. Then it was absolutely clear for us that it was positive.
If it does it for longer than 3 seconds, what does that indicate?
They don't, because they are programmed to do 3 seconds and then to go and get the reinforcer.
Okay.
Yeah. So the 3 seconds and then go to get the reinforcer. Yeah.
Okay. Do the kind of what I was getting at before was, do the rats and humans form the same kind of a bond that a dog does?
Yes. I saw with many of the handlers, you know, the thing is, even if it is a rat, you work with that animal every single day. So you develop a bond.
Is that more from the human side? Does the rat feel the same way back?
I think it's both. Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen cases of well, we train all handlers to be able to work with all rats, of course, because we don't want to have a period of we can't work because a handler is ill, or
Right.
you know. So from logistics point of view, it's much better that everybody can work with everybody. But there was no doubt that you could see that some handlers and some rats, they had a kind of a more dog-human kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the handlers really took very good care of them. I've seen scenes that are, you know, like the handler, it's hot, you know, and the sun is baking, and the handler takes the hat off to protect the rat. You know?
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, there are very, very many sweet things. Yeah, actually.
Are there any other differences in the or is the training the same for the dog and the rat, basically?
Yeah, well, you have to adjust, of course, to the species and to the conditions, because the dogs, we train them in larger areas. Mm-hmm. But the basic learning theory is the same. Yeah, we start by teaching them an indication behavior, and then we introduce them to the scent, target scent, which for landmines is TNT. That's the default that we teach them for tuberculosis, the bacteria. And then the next one is discrimination, scent discrimination, which means TNT is positive, all the rest is negative, and for the TB is positive, all the rest is negative.
Are there any rats that do both, or if you do TB, you only do TB?
We have specialists. Yeah.
Okay.
They specialize. They go to elementary school first, and then they specialize in
okay.
Yeah. And we even have another specialization, which is for the landmines. We have a specialization which is field or lab, because you can also take samples of the soil. You take soil samples.
Oh, and then know if there's...
Yes, and then they send the samples to headquarters.
And then you send a lab?
And then we put them in the, you know, like with the TB rats.
Okay.
And then the rat goes up this one. And this one, we know it came from that place. So
and then so you send the field rat there?
Yeah, or we send just a message back to people working there saying that sample from that location is a positive. And then they know that area contains TNT. They don't know exactly where the mine is, but they know that the area contains TNT. But there are two specializations then. And those that go to the field, they have to be more, they have to be tougher, of course, because they are in nature, you know, things that can scare them. For instance, if they see a shade or a bird or something like that, they can get a bit scared, because they are, of course, it's their survival, you know. So those have to be tougher.
Yeah.
They don't have better noses than those that work in the lab, but they have to be a bit more, you know, we have to train them differently as to the environment.
Well, is it training, or is it their innate personalities?
Both. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There is no doubt, you can see from the start that some of them are more, have more energy, are more adventurous, you know. Mm-hmm. And those are good to go to the fields, of course. But then we have to train them. Like, basically, I guess, like you and me, or humans, you know, we have our characteristics, but we also have to get trained.
Right. What kind of training do you do with the rats before you teach the indication behavior, before you do any scent detection? What do they do? What are they doing before that? Or can you just start that on day one?
No, first there is the imprinting, socialization, you know, and all that, and then we begin.
At what age does that start for a rat?
Oh, very early. I cannot.
Like a few days?
No, later.
Okay.
few days. I cannot tell you exactly the date, the exact time to do that. It depends also very much on the rat. Depends on also sometimes on the relation with the mother, because some mothers have a stronger relationship to the pups. So but the first part is no doubt that. But it's easy when we have them. It was more difficult when they were wild rats.
Right.
When we have them there, and the facility is a very good one, very calm, very cool, and a bit dark because they like dark as well. So they have contact with humans every single day, so they get very quickly used to humans. And then since they are like this, we begin training them. We have a special box, like a Skinner box, where we train them first. We train them where is the feeding hole, that they can go to the feeding hole to get food. Normally banana or peanuts, that's what they like. We used to say they work for peanuts. And that is the first one, where is the feeding hole. And then we train them, we condition the sound, which we use actually a clicker, which is a conditioned positive reinforcer. So clicker, and then they go and get food in the feeding hole, clicker, feeding hole. And then we want them to go to the hole. There is only one in that kind of Skinner box. And when they go to the hole and stick the nose there, which is going to be the later the indication behavior, click and peanut or banana. And then we continue from there,
Do you do any like confidence building work with them? Like with the guinea pigs, we had them doing agility obstacles and things like that.
Not really. No, not with the rats. They have been very much the work focused only on the detection part.
How do you prepare them for going out into the field then?
Yeah, that is another thing, because those that are then selected to go to the field, we train them in fields, small fields that we have, where we don't have landmines there. We have those T eggs, the eggs where you can. It's the first after elementary school they go to T egg school.
Okay.
And the T eggs are buried, and then they have to find them, and there they get the first taste of how it is to work with the soil under their paws.
Do you think that?
And then we have a huge field with landmines.
Okay.
I don't know how many when I was there.
Disarmed of.
Yes, there were 3,000 or something like that.
Wow.
All kinds of mines from all brands.
Wow.
Very, very well marked, because we need to collect data from everything. Then they go there and train there for quite a while.
So is it at that stage that you start recognizing which rats will become lab ones and which ones will become field ones, or is it earlier than that?
It depends. Some of them you can see right away they're never going to be field rats.
Do you think that you could, if you had the time and desire to, that you could overcome that with doing the agility obstacles like we do with the guinea pigs?
Maybe, but it's not worth doing it.
Okay.
Because it takes too long time, and you must remember that this is a professional work. We're saving lives, so we have to be 100% efficient, and also economize with the resources.
Right.
Because Apopo is a private organization. It's an NGO.
Oh, it's private.
The NGO. It's an NGO, but it depends on funds that it gets from donors. So it's always, as you know, with these kind of projects, it's always a fight to get the right money. So we have to economize. We had to. Now I'm not there. I left some years ago, but I guess the problems are the same.
Yeah. Part of the reason I ask is because most of the people who listen to my stuff do this as a sport with their pet dogs.
Yes.
And so some people will hear what you're saying and then try to apply it to their pet dogs, and they're wondering, oh well, does that mean my dog? I shouldn't even bother training my dog. But it's different when you train your dog.
The stakes are different. The thing is, when you train your dog, I think you should do it for fun, of course. And if you like it and your dog like it, that's fine. And maybe you are very competitive, you want to win, that's also fine. But if you don't win, nothing happened. I mean, you just lost, and then you have the next competition.
You didn't know in America we blow up as you lose.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but but nobody dies, right?
Right.
And here, literally, nobody dies.
Yeah.
with the landmine rats, this kind of work is a bit different, because if the rat does a bad job, if the handler does a bad job, it can cost lives, So we have to be very, very, very strict. There is no space to be romantic about that.
Yeah. So let's switch over to the guinea pigs. That seems like the next natural step from there. The guinea pig workshops that you've done all over the world, that's based on the Apopo rat training? Sort of?
Yes and no. It inspired me, actually, because I like guinea pigs very much. And they are, I would assume that they were easier to train than the rats, because they are domestic animals. They have some history with us, which proved to be true, because they are incredibly easy. You've been to guinea pig camp. You are a guinea pig trainer, certified.
Yes.
And you saw how easy it was. They were, I don't even remember, 5 weeks old, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Maybe
even younger, yeah. And they were amazing. Yeah. But of course, if you think, let's take the guinea pigs to Africa, that I don't think would be a success. Guinea pig is not as robust, as tough as the rats are. So,
do you think that domestication does that, or do you think it's just the guinea pigs?
I think two things. Yeah. But probably it's the guinea pigs. Of course, it's a completely different species. And second, of course, domestication. The guinea pig is a domestic animal, 100% domestic animal. But the guinea pigs could be as good, by the way, in the lab as the rats. Right. There I have no doubt at all. The line with the 10 holes, they could go from one to the other and indicate positive, negative, whatever, as well as the rest, that I'm sure.
Do you think that the guinea pigs would outperform the rats in their natural environment, in Peru or something?
I can't say.
Okay.
It's impossible.
Okay.
And I cannot compare it either, because we don't have, we know that by some studies, rats and dogs, the nose is the same. There is no problem, no difference there. With the guinea pigs, we don't know.
We don't know.
There are no studies about how low we can go in the concentration of the target scent before the guinea pig cannot detect. Which maybe it's not important either, because normally you detect quantities which any dog or any guinea pig or any rat would be able to detect.
Yeah. So most of my students and the people watching me know that the biggest factor in scent detection in the nosework world is the handler. And so what do you think, in all of your experience, what do you think are the qualities that makes a good handler, or the things that are holding handlers back from being good handlers?
Yes. That's a good question. I don't have a recipe like 1, 2, 3, 4, but I've seen many handlers with many different animals. The first one, I would say still, that you need to have a kind of empathy with the animal. You need to be a team. It's really a team. You and the animal. Doesn't matter whether it is a rat, a guinea pig, or a dog. You need to feel that you two are teammates, as we say. Buddies, you would say in the US, right?
Yeah.
But teammates, that's what we are. This is the first.
Or partners.
Or partners, yeah, the empathy. And then, of course, the handler has to have knowledge, basic knowledge of the behavior of the species, and not only the species, but of the particular animal, because all animals are different. They are individuals, and they have slight differences that may mean the difference between success and fiasco. Between the handler being able to say that's a positive, which the dog or the rat was indicating, but the handler didn't see, or missing that. So knowledge and experience as well. Because the first time you send a handler out with a dog or a rat, the handler cannot see anything, and then little by little begin to see a little twist, a little movement to one side or to the other, maybe the 1 ear that shakes a little bit, and that gives an indication to the handler. So knowledge, experience, but first the empathy. Without the empathy, you don't get anywhere.
And this is probably going to speak to a lot of people who compete with their dogs, because most of the handlers that I work with, sadly, I would say most, are feel like they're not a team. They're fighting against their dog.
No.
Like their dog, they always say, my dog's lying to me.
Right.
All right. Well, that's the death of your team right there. If you believe your dog is lying to you. They also lack that empathy and that observational skill to read what their dog's doing. They think they're reading what the dog's doing, but they don't actually know the dog's natural behavior.
But I've seen many handlers, also law enforcement handlers, that think they know better than the dog. You send them into a room and the dog goes around, the dog doesn't indicate anything, and then they get a bit frustrated, and then they begin forcing the dog kind of. And then you say dogs don't lie. Well, they force the dogs to lie, actually, because after they put so much pressure on the dog for a while, then the dog says, okay, let's finish this one. I'm going to say it's the ear, then he's happy, and then we go home, you know?
Yep.
So I don't have numbers, but most of the mistakes that I recall, where there is the handler, actually it's not the dog that reports the findings, it's the handler.
Yes.
The negative, the false positive, it's the handler that indicated, not the dog.
Yep. That's what I always tell my students is dogs can't false alert, only humans can false alert.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Also because you know that because you are a specialist in scent detection, you also took my courses. I distinguish between the apparent target location and the real target location, and what the dogs or the rats can do is give us the apparent target location, is where they get the highest concentration. With landmines, for instance, it's typical that if you have a slope, for instance, a hill, and the landmine is maybe 20, 30 years old, leaks, the TNT, it has been raining, and the TNT goes down the hill. So here is where they have the concentration. Here, that's where the rat will indicate. But the landmine is not here. The landmine is maybe 50 yards up the hill. But the animal still does what is correct, what we taught it. Give us the strongest concentration, which is there.
Now let me push on that a little bit, because in the wild, if you indicate the apparent location of prey, if you're a predator, then you die, because you have to find the actual location of the prey.
But they don't, because in nature, they get the apparent, and then they track or backtrack to get to the prey. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's not what we teach them. When we are teaching them scents that have no function for them. I mean, they don't care about TNT. Right. So what we teach them is, you give us from the very first beginning, you give us, when you detect the TNT, you give us the location right there.
So it's not so much that they can't do it, it's that it's not actually valuable.
No, it's a difficult question, because the thing is, what you want them to go and find? They give you the TNT, you know, the animal, they have to find the animal, to kill the animal, to eat the animal. The smell is not enough. They cannot live off the smell of the animal, right? Here, the TNT, they can go to the landmine, but they cannot eat the landmine. So the landmine doesn't say anything for them. The landmine for them is just, maybe the landmine is even empty, because all the TNT went away. So the landmine doesn't mean anything for them. Can you see the problem? It's a bit, it's a very artificial condition.
Yeah.
And therefore we tell them, we teach them to give us the concentration where you find it. But it's the same when you have a dog going to in a room, an airport, whatever, finding, let's say you're going to find for cocaine. You know, the dog will maybe indicate the corner there where he gets the concentration of cocaine. But maybe the cocaine is, you can see it's not there. That's where the dog gets it. Maybe the air conditioning, maybe many of the
maybe it was there and it was moved.
Yes, or maybe the air conditioning and the humidity and all that. Maybe it's there, maybe it's over there, you know. That is the job of the handler. Of course, if the dog had to live off that, again, dogs don't live off cocaine or opium or hash or whatever. So for the dog, it's not interesting to find those substances. The dog does it because we teach them.
Right.
We associate that with reinforcers. Reinforcers, as you know, are stimuli that increase the frequency, duration, and or intensity of a behavior. And they do it too. And that is a thing that I have no doubt at all. They do it also for us, because they are social animals. Law enforcement dogs, canine scent detection, for instance, I see them every single time. You can even, many of them, you can even offer them food. They don't care for the food. They don't do it for the food. They do it for the cooperation. They are so much, the social gene and the cooperation gene is so much in them, that is programming them to act in a team, to be team workers. So they do it for you. They do it for the team. Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's mind-boggling from an evolutionary point of view.
I many years ago, before I taught, I trained myself, because I belong to maybe an old school that says that you cannot teach what you cannot do, right?
Right.
So
I wish more people believed that today.
So I trained I had the English Cocker Spaniels, which I still think, if they're the really good ones, don't think of the English Cocker Spaniels that I'm talking about like those you see on the streets today, right? They are not at all the same. I had the English Cocker Spaniels, and they were amazing, easy to work with, lots of energy. They were small enough so that we could get them everywhere, transport them everywhere. And I remember sometimes we had to search for food, contraband of food that was not allowed to come into. I was in Scandinavia at the time. Was not allowed to come to Scandinavia. And so we go to kind of a post office, terminal, and the dogs have to go and search for food. And what more distractive can be than find for food? But they weren't interested in the food. They would indicate the food and leave the food. And the food was good dog food, some of it, I'm sure the dogs would like to eat it, but the food was not interesting. The interesting was the cooperation with me.
That's fascinating. It's interesting to me because, from what I can tell, the social genes that you're talking about, and altruism, and then one step further, if you go to like cultural evolution, it's actually more powerful than the others. Like a goose will starve to death to stay with the flock.
Yes.
When if you just think evolution in basic terms, you think then they should just care about food.
Yes.
But it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's much more complicated. Of course, in the end, it's not every single animal doing the math and saying, okay, let me see. I have 50% of my genes there, 25, 12. Okay, it pays off to go. It pays off to say. It's not like that. It's again this beautiful algorithm of the survival of the fittest.
Yeah,
that it's always at work, never resting.
So we talked about qualities of the handler. What about qualities?
Oh, and let me just say one more thing.
Sure.
Handlers need to be quiet, balanced, really.
Yeah.
If you get handlers that are very hyperactive, like you see some dogs as well, that doesn't work. The typical law enforcement scent detection handler is a quiet guy. He's not the guy that you send out to when you have trouble in a bar, or it's not that kind of guy. That is another kind of guy. You need both,
Yeah.
No, this is the one that likes to, think about things, have a good perspective, sense of perspectives, always calm. Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say the same for your guys, civilians. If you want to be successful with the scent detection, keep it cool, be calm.
I'm constantly telling my people, slow down, relax, think about where you want to go and what you've done.
Yes. And exactly. You're right. Yeah. Like in Thailand, there is an expression called in Thai, "Chai yen yen," which means keep it cool heart.
Okay.
That's what I used to say to law enforcement canine scent detection handlers. Chai yen yen, keep it cool.
Very good. So we talked about the traits of a good handler. What about good dog? What if how do I select, if I'm selecting a dog, what qualities do I look for in my dog if I want to be good at scent detection?
First, you have to have the nose. The dog has to be really, let's say, fascinated by scents, really want to, the nose has to be the number one. Always searching, always trying to identify different scents and localize them, that is the first quality. Second, it has to be a dog that is in good physical condition, because it's very tiring, very, very tiring. More tiring than people think. People think sometimes I go out, I throw the ball, the dog comes back with the ball, I throw it again, or I go bicycling. Not maybe it's so popular in the US, but in Europe, all dog owners go bicycling with their dogs. dog gets tired. But scent detection, using the nose focused like they do, it's very, very tiring. So it has to be in a good physical condition as well. And then you look for this cooperation, this sense of belonging to a team. This strong ability to bond. That I think also is very important. And then you train and hope for the best.
Yeah. Do you think, because it seems in the sport of nose work, and I don't know if it's the same in the professional world, but the scent hounds, bloodhounds and beagles don't do very well in competition.
In sports, no.
The dogs that tend to perform the best have lots of what we call drive. What that means is that they really want the reinforcers.
Yes.
And so labs and Malinois and border collies and those kinds of things do better than bloodhounds.
Yes.
And everyone's surprised by this. Bloodhounds should have the best nose.
But the conditions are again very different. First, maybe one of the most important is that the concentrations that you guys search for in competition are much higher, much higher than the professionals do. The professionals, in principle, can be almost zero. This is the first, which is, I think, very important. The second is the speed, because you guys in competitions, you have to be quick as well. Because if you're not quick, then the others win.
Yeah.
Even if you have all the positives, isn't that correct? Then,
yeah.
So, and time is, of course, time is important in certain circumstances. When you search for explosives, time is always important. When you search for narcotics, is a little bit different because you can take it easier. The narcotics don't go anywhere.
But also, if I try to imagine searching for drugs with the bloodhound that I used to train,
yes,
I would be horrified that my dog would be sniffing the pee and the poop and the food and all the other distracting scents, that it would be hard to get my dog to focus on just the drugs.
Yes. But that is the thing that maybe the first part of the training, which is to teach them first indication behavior and then the target scent and scent discrimination. That's not so difficult. That seriously, that we can do in focus in 3-4 days. It's done. But then starts the difficult, because the second part that you have to train, then you have to train the handler with, as we talked about, with experience and observing the dog or whatever animal it is. And then comes with all the distractions, with all the stimuli that can corrupt the target scent. Yeah, and there are many.
Yeah, and that's it's just interesting. Like in a lot of the way that I train and that a lot of trainers train in America is we do it the other way. We do the distractions first.
Yes.
The handler. Yeah. And then the target scent at the end.
Yes.
When that's all done.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been the discussion. Yes. Whether we should do it one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some years ago, I think about maybe 15 or 20 years ago, I decided, let's go the other way. The traditional way has been like you say. So I said, no, let's go the other way. Let's start from the beginning. Also because for these law enforcement dogs, I want them never to miss a positive. And I want also the handler to be able to always reinforce a positive. Mm-hmm. And you can only reinforce if they give you the indication. So if you first introduce the scent and they don't give you an indication, the scent is there, but handler cannot reinforce. So you kind of you are habituating the animal to the scent without nothing happening. Yeah. So I wanted to go the other way around, that every time the scent is there, there is a reinforcer. Always, always, always. I want to make them almost addicted to finding the scent, because that's the best thing in the world. Yeah. And that's why I started the other way around. First indication behavior, they know how to do it. And then we introduce a scent. And they want to find that scent, because that scent is the best thing in the world. And then you can, add other scents that will corrupt the original one, the target. But little by little, they don't care. Yeah. Because they are already addicted, so to say. When I say addicted, by the way, I mean only literally, figuratively speaking. Yeah,
not the drugs. You're not giving them the drugs.
No, I think it's important, because I have questions. Sometimes people asking me, oh, do you give them a shot to the dogs? So seriously, people ask me, do you give them the shot so that they get addicted? I said, no way, no, not at all. When I say addicted, I mean workaholic, you know. They want to find it because it's the best thing, but it's not because they are addicted like junkies. Wolfie and the others are not junkies.
Yeah, no. I want to talk a little bit about ethology and scent detection, because it seems like scent detection and ethology kind of go hand in hand. We're entering the dog's world,
right,
when we do scent detection.
Yes.
Do you think it's really valuable for people who do scent detection to study ethology? Do you think because I assume the professionals don't actually study that much ethology.
No, but it's again because everything is very focused and very goal oriented. Law enforcement has many problems. One of them are resources as well. So you have to again direct your resources towards the goals that you want to obtain. And I don't know. Yes, I presume that if you could give handlers wider background in general ethology, and especially the ethology of the animal you work with, in this case dogs, yes, I cannot imagine that it wouldn't be better. Yes, it would be, probably yes. But I don't know if it would be only marginally better, that would pay off,
right,
the investment. Because it is an investment, it will take longer,
sure.
So.
But obviously for the pet dogs, it's a huge benefit because you're doing it, there's no criteria like of time limits, and you're doing it to form a better relationship with your dog.
For pet dogs, I have no doubt that they should do it, in my opinion, because you have a pet dog not only to go and, you said you do your scent detection is for sport, it's for fun, it's to have fun, to enjoy, to earn some prizes, to win some prizes, that's fine, but at the end of the day, you go home with the dog, you're not going to do scent detection in the evening, the day after maybe you're not going to do scent detection either, so you're going to have a normal relationship. So for dog owners, pet owners, I have no doubt that if they knew more about the natural behavior of the dog, that would be a plus, yes.
Yeah. I guess I should have started with this, but for those who don't know what ethology is, how would you describe ethology?
Ethology is the study of behavior, of animal behavior in the natural environment. And when we mean natural, we mean natural. If you look at the pet dogs, for instance, what is the natural environment of the pet dog? It's here. It's here. It's out there on the street. It's the car. It's going for a walk. That is the urban environment. Or if you live out in the country, that's a rural environment. But it's still environment where humans are. If you speak about feral dogs, that's different. Feral dogs live up in the outskirts of big cities, maybe even in mountains and so on, But the natural environment of the animal, yes.
Do you think different breeds have different natural environments?
Not any longer, because we have kind of mixed everything together. But original, yes, you can see original. There was a big difference between hunting dogs and herding dogs, for instance. And even between herding dogs, there were several types. Those that round them up, those that only protect them. Also hunting dogs, there are many. There are the pointers, there are the retrievers.
Well, because I'm thinking about my pointer at home.
Yeah.
It's very clear to me that an urban environment is not his natural environment.
No, but there are breeds still like yours, for instance, which have kept so much of the original that it will be very difficult for you. And now you're prepared. It's going to be very difficult for you to have it as a normal pet dog,
I think when he gets 10 years old.
Maybe 10, 12, gets quiet. But, the problem is that, it's good and bad. I think it's good personally, but that's a personal opinion. Your dog never became a popular breed, right?
Yeah.
Because when they become popular breeds, then you see the original gene pool diluting more and more, so that they become more like all other dogs. You have several examples of that. One of them, the collie.
Yeah.
The collie was not a lassie, but then he became lassie, and these days we see the border collie.
Yeah.
The border collie of today is not the same as the border collie of 20 years ago or 30 years ago from Scotland.
Now that
the border region.
That makes me sad. And I feel
Yeah.
like we're losing a piece of human culture and
Yeah.
dog genetic pool. But on the other hand, times have changed. Is it time for us to let these ideas go?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a normative question. That's a question of values. What do you think is?
What do you think?
I'm an old guy, so I want things a little bit more.
You want to preserve things?
Yeah, I like to preserve things, you know.
Okay.
But new generations want to, of course,
because obviously,
you know,
the types of lives that real border collies, working border collies, are meant to have. There's a lot less demand for that, and there's too many border collies to fill that role.
Yes, of course.
So,
of course, but you know, we were talking about my Cocker Spaniels. You know, it was the same at the time that I got my Cocker Spaniel. The Cocker Spaniel was already going down the breed because of the famous Disney movie with the Lady and the Tramp. Lady and the Tramp. Yeah, that was a good and bad thing for the Cocker Spaniels. You know.
Yeah.
They became very popular, incredibly popular, and then you know, everybody wants to breed those dogs because it gives money and they are cute and it gives money again. You know, and then the breed goes downhill very quickly. And again, as you say, I don't know, the Cocker Spaniels were and are still hunting dogs.
Yeah.
There is no room for so many hunting dogs anymore.
Yeah.
So the same problem with the pointer or the border collies, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And other breeds we have, the Old English Sheepdog, for instance. What is the Old English Sheepdog good for these days, you know?
Looking cute.
Yeah. And, you know, and that is also a thing that sometimes upsets me a little bit on a personal plan, because they look cute and the hair, the fluffy and beautiful and all that. And then people buy them and they say, oh no, it's too much work, we cut it.
Yeah.
And then they destroy completely the reason why they bought the dog, you know.
Yeah.
Then they destroy it. Yeah.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It blows my mind. So back to dogs in their natural environments and ethology, I've had this idea in the back of my head for a while that I wanted to run past you, which is people take for granted. They say dogs are predators,
right? But
that's not so easy of a thing to say. I think if you look at dogs in the wild, canines can be predators, but they can also be scavengers.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
they're opportunistic.
They're opportunistic. Yes.
They are.
And I've always felt that I've noticed that some dogs, when I see them do scent detection, seem more like they're scavenging and less like they're hunting.
Right.
And I wonder if it could be the type and way we're reinforcing is bringing out scavenging tendencies.
Like, can you give examples?
So we do a lot of training with food, right? I think in general, if you reinforce with toy, your dog will be more likely to hunt than scavenge when they do scent detection.
Okay.
But if you use food, I feel like sometimes dogs scavenge. They slow down, they sniff in a different way.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I know what you mean. Yeah. It's interesting. Very interesting observation. That would be worth doing a study, actually.
We should do it. Maybe the Ethology Institute can do some kind of study.
You can be the leader of the project.
There we go.
There you go. Good project. Good idea.
Okay.
No, really, seriously speaking, very interesting. I never thought about that. If the food or the whatever you use as a reinforcer.
Well, because not all food dogs do it. Like my dogs work for food, but they also hunt.
Yeah.
They really hunt. But I see a lot of dogs that what I think of as scavenge. They're not hunting.
No.
They don't have a direction to their movement. They bump into odor.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, good, I found something.
Yes,
you know?
Yes. Well, that can also depend on the breed.
Yeah.
You know, I guess some breeds will be, the thing is, for civilians, we do canine scent detection with everybody, with all kinds of dogs, because it's one of the best stimulation programs that you can give a dog. So some of them maybe some of them don't even know what's hunting, you know, they just go and find the thing because then they get food, you know. You guys also search for food, right? Many times.
For pet dogs sometimes. Yeah. For competition, it's always for an odor.
For an odor, yeah. So maybe for those dogs, it is like, okay, I can find it with the nose, but they're really not hunting.
Is there any reason that scavenging is a bad thing? Or do we want our dogs to hunt?
No,
is that a good
not
thing?
Necessarily. No, look, I'm an ethologist, so there is no good and bad.
Yeah.
scavenging is a very good strategy. Why should you go hunting if you can get food by scavenging? You know.
What about benefit for enrichment of our pet dogs? Is there a benefit to teaching them to hunt versus scavenge?
Maybe not. It depends on how much energy they consume, because still you have to think that everything we do with our dogs should be to stimulate them so that they are at the end of the day they are tired, happy, satisfied with what they've done, you know, and they don't have that urge to tear curtains down and you know, be destructive.
Yeah.
Which is actually the reason why many dogs are destructive, because of understimulation.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is our goal, so it doesn't matter. If they go scavenging, that's fine. Let them go scavenging, you know. If they go hunting, that's also fine. But some of them, I don't think you can change. Like your dog, your dog will always go hunting.
Yeah.
It has such a high concentration of, I would say, of genes that have in the gene pool that many generations back program it to do that.
Yeah. I think even if he lived in like the Mexico City dump with the feral dogs, he'd be.
Yes, you will be pointing.
There's food everywhere, but
I think you will be very frustrated because you will be pointing constantly.
Yeah. So now on to my students' questions. Can or should a dog be trained for a formal alert later in their nose work life? My dog has already a competitive title in nose work, and she thinks the dog would enjoy having what she calls a formal alert to tell me when he's at source.
Okay, so you mean like an indication behavior that we teach ours that when,
because obviously all the dogs have an indication behavior.
Yes.
But some of in the way a lot of people train nose work here, we don't select a specific thing.
No.
We don't say you have to sit or you have to down or you have to freeze. Yeah. We just, when the dog puts his nose on it, we reward, and whatever the dog does is okay.
I mean, it depends on what you like, you know. I like to have the indication behavior, but I think it looks nice. It's a little detail. The moment the dog focus on that, you know, and but if you don't need it, I don't think it makes any difference.
Do you think it could benefit the dog in any way? Could the dog enjoy it more?
That's difficult to say. You have to ask the dog.
Do you think? Oh, here's a maybe more direct question. Do you think maybe a lack of criteria when you say anything you do is okay, that can be confusing to the dog and frustrating because they don't know what they should do?
Right. From that point of view, I think it is, yes. I think it's a bit confusing because there is no end to it. Look, if you look, animals are, most part of the time, they are very pragmatic. There is a goal with what they do. It's not like they just don't wander around. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just going for a walk.
Yeah.
They never go for a walk if they have better to do. If they don't have anything to do, they just lay down and rest. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when they go, it's because they follow a scent, or they're hungry, or they're going to find another pack or mate or family member. But there is a goal. So I would say that teaching the dog just to go and find a scent, and then you find the scent, and then food comes from the heaven, you know, it might be a little bit, I'm guessing, of course, I have no idea, I don't know, but it might be a little bit weird for some dogs. Oh, when I do something here around, well, every time this scent appears, food comes, boom, falls, you know. So maybe it would be, it will be more structured for them to teach them an indication behavior. The food is there, I go there, I look. Okay, the food or the scent. Mm-hmm. And now when I do that for 3 seconds, then I get a signal from my my teammate, which is reinforcing that case, or a free signal, free. And then there is a reinforcer, which can be food. Yeah. Doesn't need to be food, by the way.
Right. I do want to talk about that in a second. And I think when we talk about general dog stuff, I want to talk about the use of food reinforcers that I think has gotten away from us today. But so it seems to me like in the question of formal alert, what's important is clarity and communication.
Yes.
And it's not so much important, like I don't think the dog prefers to have one behavior over another. I think it's just, it prefers to have a good understanding of what he should do.
Yes, I would say so. Because for the dog, the things that we teach them to find, they don't mean anything.
Yeah.
It could be whatever.
Yeah.
It's not necessary for their survival in any way.
Yeah.
So they will do whatever we ask them.
Mhm.
But if it must be very clear.
Yeah.
This is the thing that we want, and these are the consequences of finding it.
Yeah.
And those are the consequences of not finding it. You know?
Yeah. And I would add this for people who are thinking about this right now, is that the trainers on both sides of the aisle of this type of thing in America, the good trainers are clearer.
Yes.
And there are bad trainers on both sides who aren't clear. Like, you can be unclear with your indication behavior. And I've seen this where, let's say your indication is a sit, okay? Where now the dog doesn't understand that the sit has to be near odor, and they just sit.
Right.
And it's because you weren't clear to the dog about what you wanted.
Right.
And then on the other side, where there's a trainer who doesn't care what behavior the dog does, but he's clear, you get a reinforcer every time you go to odor, even though it doesn't matter if they're sitting or if they're downing, if they're freezing, the dog is clear. I just need to get to odor.
Yes.
And so then I see dogs happy on both sides, but the consistent thing is whether the trainer is consistent or not.
Yeah, that is absolutely. Consistency goes through in everything. Or when we studied them, because you belong to Ethology Institute as well, we have over 10,000 files of dogs problem behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we can see that goes through is consistency. It's not so much whether you use reinforcers or not, actually, or what kind of reinforcers you use.
Mm-hmm.
It is consistency.
Yeah.
That is number one. If consistency is missing, then your odds of getting problem behavior are much higher.
That makes a lot of sense.
We've seen dogs that live under poor conditions, owners that ignorance. First, they don't have the facilities, and also because of ignorance, they didn't know anything about dog behavior. So they lived in which we could call poor conditions and poor welfare conditions as well. But they were good dogs, wonderful dogs actually. They adapted because there was consistency,
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen other dogs that live in amazing conditions, penthouses in big cities, and they have food that costs more than the food that I eat every day.
Yeah.
So to say, and medical care, which is better than medical care I get or you get. And they were disturbed. They were. They showed problem behavior, really problem behavior, because there was no consistency. I think in anything that the owners did. Sometimes they got good things, other times they got bad things, but they couldn't really figure out why. It's like, life is a bit random. Good things happen, bad things happen, but we don't know why.
Yeah.
The other ones, they lived in poor conditions and maybe poor welfare conditions as well, but they knew what were the consequences of their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So consistency, I have no doubt, is very important.
Makes sense. Okay. Do dogs have mental maps? If I take my dog to a park on a regular basis, will he have a mental map of the park? The reason she's asking is because her dog took a shortcut through the park to the car, and it's a shortcut they'd never taken before on their walks.
Yes, I am. There is no way I can prove that, but I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah, not only dogs, but all animals have a mental map, which is different from our maps as well, because it all depends on landmark. Maps are made consisting of landmarks, and the landmarks are apprehended by our senses. So their dogs, their maps will be much more scent oriented than ours. Ours are much more visual, as you know. Birds, they even have magnetic landmarks and magnetic maps, I would say. And of course, you can take a shortcut. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have. Yes, very, very detailed maps, different from ours, but very good. Yes.
There's a story I want to tell you because it links to mental maps. My dog had a very, very specific routine when she went herding. And she would go do her herding training, and we'd do that. And then when we come out, she'd go to a bucket of water that she would jump in and then pee.
In the water?
Yes, and then drink it. Yeah, don't ask. I know, that's weird. Okay, but that was her routine. Okay. She always did it every single time, the same way, okay? And one week, they took the bucket away to clean it, and we did our herding run, and she came out to where the bucket normally is and jumped in the middle of the air, landed, and peed.
That is a very interesting case.
So clearly she had an image in her mind that there should be a bucket here.
There should be a bucket there. And you upset the routine of your dog.
Yeah, and she looked around like shocked.
Yeah. That's a very interesting case, really.
Yeah, and then another story to go along with that. We had a friend who lived in Lancaster, and it used to be a horse training facility. They had this fence that went across one side of it. And the horse trainer left, and the horses left, and they removed the fence. And still to this day, the dogs wouldn't go through where the fence was.
No.
They always went to where the gate was.
Yes.
Even though they could go walk right through. Right. And actually the people too. I walked that same route for a month before I said, why am I walking this way?
It's, we create routines because in the end they can be life-saving.
Yeah.
And then, first they are energy-saving. That's why we create routines, because if we've done one thing 10 times and it was good, so we can make it 11th and 12th time as well, without spending so much energy, because we know that it will go the way that we expect, right? So that's why we build the routines, and it's very upsetting to when our routines are broken. But that goes for all species. Of course, some of them are worse than others, but that is also depending on the strategy that nature has. Some species do not need to have so many routines because they live in changing environments. So it's better that they just learn and adapt to new routines. Others, if they have a very stable environment, then it's better to maybe not to learn so much, not to have the ability to learn so much, but to have the ability to build really strong routines. Normally those species have strong instincts and so on.
Yeah, well, it's amazing what you can do with that. Like, I don't know what the research is currently about bees and ants, but I don't think they can really learn, can they?
There are, with ants, I don't know, but with bees, there are examples of bees that can acquire new behavior. Well, acquiring new behavior is learning.
Yes.
Of course, it's limited. It's not like mammals and primates, especially because mammals and primates are the opposites of the strategy that nature chooses. We look, our babies, they cannot do anything when they are born, and then they learn. But the capacity of learning is enormous.
Right. And I guess maybe that was the wrong example, because we talked about this with plants, but like, it's amazing how complex the behavior of plants and fungus and insects can be without even worrying about learning. Like, if you could just produce a solid routine, you can do a lot.
But there is also learning, there is adaptation,
Yes.
And again, you see the plants that are the grass, for instance, has a power of adaptation, which is enormous. It lives all over the planet, and cold and heat and wind, and this is learning in a way, and then passes to the next generation.
And somehow they've convinced humans that they should propagate it. I don't know how they did that. That's impressive.
Yeah, that is
because it's not useful to us almost in any way.
No, that's right. That's right. But that is another. That will have to wait for another time, because
there has to be something there, right?
Yeah, there is. I've been studying plants for quite a while now. Now that I'm retired, I can dedicate my to other things that have my interest, but don't exactly give money. So plants are some of them, and plants are much more intelligent. And I really mean intelligent than we suppose. And your example is very good. They have this ability to influence us, to help them propagate. Yeah, it's very smart.
So now I'm going to move into some more general dog questions. So first, someone asked if you could go into more detail about rewarding versus reinforcing.
Okay.
Are you saying that what we call rewards are actually reinforcers, Or are you saying that these are two different things used in training? Am I overthinking it? She's trying to internalize the concept.
I would say in training and learning, forget everything about reward, as we normally understand the reward. Reward has no learning effect. Reinforcer have. Reinforcer, as we define them, are any stimulus that increases the frequency, intensity, and/or duration of a behavior when presented simultaneously or immediately after that behavior takes place. That is a reinforcer. Reward, as we understand it more in our daily language, is a thing that you get because you did something over a period of time, or because you've been working 5 years in the same department. But that does not increase in any way any aspect of your job today. What will make your work better today is, for instance, if your supervisor comes and says, "Well done, that was really, really good," you know.
That's so true.
Super. Or customers that come and love your job and say, "Oh, I love to come here just because you are so good, you help me," you know. That reinforces.
It's true, because your boss gives you lots and lots of money and increases the money they give you over time, but you can still end up resenting them because what you get from them is inhibitors.
Right. And you don't, I don't know in the US, but in Europe, it's very common that Christmas you get an extra salary, month's salary.
But you don't work harder during Christmas.
Exactly. I mean, when in March or right now, you're not thinking about, oh, I have to work harder because I'm going to get my extra salary in December. No. Now you work hard because customer comes and says you are good, or
it's your favorite customer. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So we've been seeing that at the restaurants we've been eating out at.
Yes.
We want to go to the same consistent one, and have the same waitress, and we get a good relationship.
And you can see that it helps.
Yeah.
Their service gets better. They come and greet us right away, you know, because they get that reinforcer. We give them right away. Wow, we come here because you're good. We like to, you know, and they reinforce us also because they treat us well. So of course we want to go to the same restaurant because they treat us well. But this is the essence of a reinforcer, not of a reward. And with animals, with our dog training, we use reinforcer. We don't use rewards. It's not like if the dog sits, it's now dukti. Dukti. I don't know if your viewers know what dukti is.
Some of them will, some of them won't.
Okay, dukti is a Danish word. It means clever, and it has a good doggy sound. Dukti, you know, gives you a funny face. But dogs like the funny face. And I always use, but you can say whatever. You normally say good job, or good dog,
boy,
or well
good
done,
dog,
goodbye, etc. It doesn't matter what it is really, but that is what is going to increase the behavior of the dog. Sit and you say to the dog. It's not like you say sit, and then you know, you go home, and in the evening before putting the dog to bed, you give him an extra bone and say, "Oh, this is by the way because you did some good sits today." Some good sits. Well, there you go. Old chap, there you go.
Well, it's funny because some people actually do that, right?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, we do that. When my dog does really well at a nose work competition, when we go to the restaurant, we get them a steak.
Yeah, and you know, it was very common in I don't know, it is still. I still don't go to dog training anymore, but in old days it was very common. Then when the session, everybody went to the field, train, you know, and when the session was over, they go put the dog in the car, open the car door, the hatch or whatever they have. Now everybody has a hatch. In the old days, it was just passenger door. You know?
Yeah.
The dog in, and then they throw something to the dog, a bone or some extra food or something, because you've been so good today. There you go. So what are I mean, those dogs, I tell you, it's like kids when they hear the bell ring
at the end of school.
Class is over, you know. They run, because what are we teaching them? We reinforce them the free, you know.
Yeah.
Class is over. Oh, that's great, you know. That's what we were teaching the dog.
That's so interesting.
Class is over. Go to the car. They were running no dog had any problem getting to the car. The problem was to get him from the car, but to get to the car, no problem.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? We have to think about those things, you know. Everything has consequences. Everything we do has consequences, and we just have to think a little bit more, you know.
Aside from the basics like food, water, and shelter, what do dogs want most from us?
Food, shelter, and
water.
Contact.
Contact.
Absolutely. They are. I will maintain they are social animals, very much so. And they need contact. They cannot live without contact. And feeling accepted. They have been programmed to work in groups. And the groups have to function well. So to feel accepted, to feel part of a group is essential.
Mm.
A dog cannot, a dog alone is not a dog.
Do you think that contact is actually more important to them than food and water and shelter?
In some cases, I would say yes. Yes. And many, many years ago, in the beginning of the 80s, we had some studies we did where we compared wolf, foxes, and dogs, the behavior of puppies, cubs. And we had some very interesting cases. For instance, accepting food. The wolf cubs would not accept food before they felt that they were accepted by us. They would come to us even if we had food, but instead of taking the food, they would first lick us and bite a little bit, lick, lay down, like they want to say, okay, you are okay, you are accepted, and then they would eat. The dogs would eat everything, and the foxes, they weren't interested at all in communicating with us like that. They wanted the food. If they smell food, they take food, it went away. Food went away. There was no cuddling or anything like that. The dogs were kind of in between,
Do we have the ability to shape them one direction or the other? The dogs, that is?
Shape them like...
Because I see a lot of dogs who are like, I'll take the food and leave.
Yeah, but that is because we live in a cynical world. Forgive me for saying that.
Yeah.
It's cynical between us humans, and it is among them as well, It became very cynical. These days, you don't do anything without getting paid. Even the children ask, if you tell them, don't clean your room, how much do I get,
Yeah.
So you want the dogs to be different.
Yeah, that's true.
Sit. Okay, what do I get for that?
Yeah, that's exactly what they say. Yeah. Do dogs actually have facial expressions like happiness or sadness, or are we just projecting?
They have facial expressions, but the happiness and sadness and those are more reserved to primates.
What expressions do they have?
They have the four big motivators of social behavior: aggressive behavior, fearful behavior, dominant behavior, and submissive behavior. And then all the forms of pacifying behavior. Pacifying is voluntary, submissive, or fearful behavior. Elements of both. Pacifying. Pacifying means that you want to change the motivation of your opponent from being aggressive to being friendly. So those expressions they definitely have, because they are part of the communication. Ears up, ears down. The head can go a bit down, a bit up. Body posture as well. All those expressions they have. But happiness and sadness and joy and all those things, they seem to have first appeared with the primates.
Do you think they feel those emotions?
That's a good question. That's really a good question. Look, I'm going to take a very prudent approach, which is if we do, probably so do they, but not the same way as we do.
Okay.
I think that's the most brilliant. I'm an evolutionary biologist, so I believe in a continuum. There is, believe not religiously, but because there is evidence that there is a continuum. Okay, yeah. And as Darwin said, the differences between the different species are differences of degree, not of kind.
Yeah.
So if I have some emotions down the line, some others will have too, and maybe at the bottom of the line they don't have it anymore. But there is a continuum,
So it's very often that you'll hear a pet owner say, "Look, they're so happy."
Yeah, but that is because we say that about one another too, and we don't know anything about that.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. But what do you think in general, when we think a dog's happy, what are we actually seeing usually?
Well, most dog owners, when they say the dog is happy, they mean the dog is hyperactive. He's maybe even a little bit excited about something. But excitement and hyperactivity doesn't mean it's not equal to happiness.
No.
I mean, you don't need. I've never seen a Buddhist monk jump crazy, up dancing and all that, and they are content. That's the goal of being a Buddhist monk. But they don't jump like crazy. So we have a tendency to confuse being exuberant, being hyperactive with being happy. Actually, I really believe that happiness. Now it's difficult because we haven't even defined happiness, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Is more a state of balance, of homeostasis, of equilibrium than a state of being. Big emotions up means sometimes big emotions down as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe we should try to keep thinking more in the middle.
More in the middle.
Yeah. With animals, I think so. Yes, animals are not very. If you see it's very seldom that you see animals by themselves or in nature going from one extreme to the other. They don't go from a deep depression to being woo.
Yeah.
Yay, that's my day. I won, whatever.
Yeah.
They're more like, let's take it as it comes.
Yeah. No, that's true. For the average pet dog owner, if you could convince the average pet owner to change one thing that they do with their pet,
right,
what would you change?
One thing, the average dog owner.
Mm-hmm. The average dog owner.
Wow. I would say, look, it's a difficult question because I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
But in general, I would say treat the dog as a dog.
Yeah.
Find out what the dog is and then treat it as a dog. Do not treat the dog as a substitute for company. There are so many studies and so many nice, touching stories about how dogs, cats, to other pets, they are the only company that elderly have or children, and we get so touched and a tear drops and so on. I think it's sad, actually. I think it's very sad that elderly and children sometimes they don't have other company than an animal of another species. They should have their own. They should have their kin, their friends around. And I think it's in my book, and don't get me wrong, but in my book that's abuse of an individual if you use that individual for something else that individual of what it is supposed to be. A dog is not a substitute for a friend or for a husband or a wife or a parent, like or a son or whatever. It's not a substitute. And in my book, I would call that abuse, even if it's very touching. It is, but it's. I would call it abuse. Yes.
Yeah. I know there's a trend right now in America to this idea of fur babies. And at first it was just cute,
Yeah.
And it was poking fun at the, how a lot of people, it's their fur baby because their children have left home because they're older. Right. But now I'm actually worried that it's becoming more than that, that people are replacing them and treating them like babies.
Yes.
And that's bad for the dogs.
And I also see the term pet parents, and and I really, my toes curl deeply. I tell you, every time I hear that, every time, because as you say, it's cute, it's sweet, but there is more to it.
I think so.
Yeah.
So on my pages, it's a fur baby free zone. They're dogs, and we're humans.
Now speaking about details, this is one of the reasons why I do not like really when people say good boy, good girl, and I always say it's not a boy, it's not a girl, it's a dog.
Yeah, that's true.
If I were a dog, I would say, boy, I'm not a boy, I am a dog, I'm a wolfie. Say good wolfie.
Good wolfie. Okay, so let's take that one step further. So let's forget the average pet owner. Let's say the next level up of someone who knows more about dogs. They're studying ethology a little bit. They maybe do dog sports with their dog. what one thing can they change that would make a better life for their dog?
People that do sports and active and
someone like me, like
someone like you. Oh wow, but you are a special case, so I don't know even where to start.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've seen me with my dogs. I'm sure you think there's something I could change.
What could you do with you? No, well, in sport in general, there is one thing I want to say in general, not to you especially, but to everybody, because I also participated in sports with the animals, with the dogs and horses as well. But I did it, as I told you, because I had to show people. I cannot say, oh, no, I have a better way to do it.
Yeah.
I cannot say that. I have to show it, right? So I participated in competitions, and of course I wanted to win, because only if I win can I show them that I'm better, right? Or that at least they should listen to me a little bit. But I know also by nature that I like sports. I've done sports all my life. I'm very competitive. You can find out in a while when we're going to play pool, you know,
Yes.
because you don't have a chance. But I stopped doing sports myself with the dogs, especially with dogs, not because I didn't like it, but because seriously, I was afraid that my ambitions would be detrimental for the welfare of the animal. I was not thinking any longer about what is good for the dog. I was thinking about, I want to win.
Yes.
We want to win. And then it's very easy to me to say, because my friend said, I said that to my friend, they said, oh no, but look at, it was my very good old Cocker Spaniel, Petrina. Oh, but look, she enjoys it and so on. I said, I'm not sure she enjoys it, really. Maybe she goes with me, you know, she goes with me. I think she enjoys, but she doesn't. Are you sure Natalie enjoys playing pool with us?
No, I'm not.
No, seriously. I mean, I'm very grateful Natalie does, because I appreciate her company enormously. But I feel maybe she does it because of us. It's not because she enjoys it, you know, and it's not fair of us.
Yeah.
And the same, it's not fair to Wolfie or no, it's not Wolfie, but to our dogs. They do it for us, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe we should go compete playing pool, for instance. We don't force anyone to, you know.
Yeah. No, that's super important advice, and it's super important advice for someone like me and any of you here, because I see it all the time where, you know, we start doing nose work because we want to do something for the dog, and the dog can be a dog and do this. And then very quickly, now we're trying to change the dog to fit the competition. And we have to curb that a little bit. Or sometimes people go as far as getting another dog so they can do it better.
Right.
And it's like, wait, what happened to this dog that you were...
But that I've seen very often.
Yeah.
I mean, at the institute...
And that's not a bad thing in and of itself.
No. I mean, if people are cool enough to say, okay, I prefer to find a good home for this dog because it's not my dog, the kind of dog I want. But what I think is sad is that I've seen, we have at the institute, if you see the files, many dogs that people came, at one time we promoted kind of rehoming, find a new home for the dog. If people came with a dog and said, no, we don't want this dog, and it was a good dog, we would help finding a new home. And many of those cases, you wouldn't believe it, but they came because they bought the dog for something. I remember especially one that was maybe the top, a really, really good dog. They bought it to agility, to win agility competitions. And the first time the dog was up on one of those obstacles, it was shaking and almost puked, you know, afraid of.
Wow.
And then they said, no, this is not the dog for us. This is not the dog I want to win. So they came with the dog and said, do you want the dog? He's a good dog. And it was, by all means, a good dog, a wonderful dog.
Yeah.
But it was not good for their purpose. That happened, by the way, with horses all the time.
All the time.
You know, in dogs is not so common, but horses, I mean, parents buy a horse for the little girl. She's 13 years or 14 years, and then she participates in whatever competition she can, and then suddenly she's 17, 18, wants something else, sell the horse and buy a new horse, you know.
Well, and in some ways that's a good thing. If you think about it, the way dogs are distributed to the public is uneven. Dog trainers often don't have a dog spicy enough that for what they want, and the average pet home has a dog too spicy for them if they could switch.
That's right. But now you're thinking modern, you know.
Yes,
you're thinking modern, because our dogs and horses, for instance, times in natural life, how many times would the chance herd or pack?
Once.
They don't chance. They stay there and die there.
Mm.
And maybe they are forced to move for some circumstances. Maybe they are, but they will move maybe once. Yeah, but they don't come moving like that.
No.
We are adapting to our, if you ask my grandmother, how many times you get married? Once. Now let's ask our viewers how many times you get married. So you see, it's a co-evolution.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I never even thought of that. What's your viewpoint on social learning for dogs in the same household versus different species learning from each other in the same household, like cat to dog?
Dogs that live together, they influence one another enormously. Mm-hmm. And it's actually, it's easier to get bad behavior than to get bad behavior, as we all know. But they also influence one another. There is no doubt that if you have a cat, I've had cats, horses, dogs, ducks, all kinds of animals together. Mm-hmm. And I could see with time that they adapted to one another. They even territorially, they adapted to one another. They had their peculiarities, all of them. And they adapted. I remember a duck that we had. He was the king of the yard. When King Anus, we call it Anus, he walked, everybody went about. He was, but they adapt to one another. They learn from one another, of course. And the funny thing is also that they somehow they develop bonds and they support one another.
Yeah.
For instance, if the duck, that duck that we had in the inner part of where we lived, the yard, came with alarm call because of fox or something, the dogs would react immediately. They would go there. Normally they would hunt ducks, but not that one. That is their duck. Don't hurt my duck, okay? But they would defend, and the same with the cat. Mm-hmm. When our cat was in trouble because of a tomcat that came and was a bit too lovingly maybe, and Katerina, the cat, she would make a distress call. The dogs were there right away, chasing the intruder, the tomcat away.
Do you think?
And the cat slept with horse, for instance, in the stall. Katerina, many times in the morning, we found her on top of Indy. Indy was the horse, right on top of Indy, sleeping there very peacefully. Two different species; they don't have anything to contact, warmth,
And without a bridle, she was on top of the horse.
Yeah, she just came.
No bit.
No, she just the horse was there in the stall, and then she jumped from a fence and just on top of the horse, just lying there on the back, the quarter, the part, just there sleeping very calmly.
Do you think because of this, for the average dog owner, it's better for them to only have one dog because they're so influential with each other and it's so easy for them to pass bad behavior?
Yes and no. I actually, most people I would recommend have one dog. That's it. Not so much because of bad behavior, because one dog is a lot of job, a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right. And two dogs, people say, oh, 2 dogs is easy. No, 2 dogs is actually more than 2 times.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 times plus what they create of trouble among themselves. And one dog you can take everywhere. I don't know, in the US, probably it's different from Europe, but in Europe, when you have one dog, you go with the dog everywhere. Put in the car, you go for a walk, then use the car again. Many restaurants in Europe even allow you to have the dog outside,
on the patio.
Yeah, there's no problem with that. When you visit friends, if our friends are dog friendly, they even ask sometimes, oh, bring a Bongo or Kingo or whatever it is, whatever is the name of the dog. But if you have 2, that's different. With 2 dogs, you don't go like that everywhere any longer. So the life of the dog would be different. Mm-hmm. The life quality of the dog would also be different. But you have to, it's a question of balance again, because 2 dogs together have a lot of fun together too. Dogs give one another things that we cannot. So you have to decide, if you have one dog alone, you have to be more for the dog, no doubt. But it will also be easier.
Yeah.
So there is no one right answer to that. Depends on what you want.
That's very true. I don't think a lot of people talk about the trade-offs that you get when you decide to have more dogs or less dogs. And I wish more people.
And if you have 3 or 4 like you guys have, you cannot go anywhere.
No, it's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. Yeah, it is completely different.
Yeah, it is, and we have to go out of our way, like with catfish.
All right.
When we try to space our dogs, so he's what.
People know that catfish
is my newest puppy. Yeah, they know because he's on my stuff. But
we're not talking about the fish that Michael is training.
Yeah, my catfish. That we're raising. No. So he's what, 2 years younger than our old?
He's 4 years.
He's 4 years younger than our last dog.
Okay.
So what happens is he gets to be for the first year like an only dog.
Okay.
So he goes with us everywhere. And he goes with us to the restaurant. He goes with us here. So we find that it makes a good thing. But still, because there's 4 other dogs at home, he doesn't get the same quality of life that my first dog got when she was the only dog, the real only dog. So it is definitely a trade-off. So this is a question that kind of gets us into another territory that we'll talk about and see where it goes. For the last several years, I've noticed that the positive reinforcement box is getting smaller and more confining. And I believe this has more to do with selling a product than actually training animals with skill to live in our society. Do you have any thoughts?
I like example. I'm a practical man in these kind of things.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what she meant exactly, but I'm sure she's talking about how you have to use specific tools now to be positive trainer, and you have to, like, even now luring is kind of being frowned upon, and you should only use shaping to be a true positive trainer.
Well, I don't see it like that. I was one of the first that started the positive movement, as you know, back in the 80s. And the positive in the positive training for us was the attitude that we wanted to understand the animal, first understand, create a good relationship with the animal. And I'm really talking about animal because it was not only dogs. We also tried with it was attitude dogs, cats, horses, and of course, we would motivate the animals. Motivation, we used reinforcers, and we used what we call auxiliary signals, which could be hand signals, which could be food, So, but to be positive for us was not a question of tools, of what tools you use. You could be very positive and don't use, not use food as much, which was very common at the time. Food was a new invention. I was one of the first, actually. If you look at historical books of dog training, one of the first books, it's my book from 1984, Psychology Rather Than Force, it's called. It's one of the first books that uses food. And now, so many years later, I found out that at the time I was very criticized by using food, as you can imagine, because nobody used food.
Right.
And now it's almost the opposite. Everybody uses tons of more food than I do.
Yeah.
Because I use food only specifically for either for what you call luring, auxiliary. I don't see anything wrong with that, not to answer the question. Of course, shaping is one of the procedures of operant conditioning. Mm-hmm. But if you can make the process easier by showing the animal what you want with the treat or your finger, it doesn't need to be food. I cannot see anything wrong with that. We do also to one another,
Yeah.
I can come here. And that's it, like,
Yeah.
This means sit here. We help.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot see anything wrong with that. It's not to be less positive because of that.
Mm. Yeah, no, and that's something I did want to touch on is it almost feels to me like people have forgotten how not to use food, like that you can do things without food, and we feel like we have to use food for everything. And that's almost even on both sides of the spectrum, positive reinforcements and the punishment trainers.
Yes.
They use food for everything also. They just also jerk the dog around.
Yes. For me, it's really very, very surprising, the development that it took. Because as I told you, let me repeat it, in 1984, when I wrote my book, Psychology Rather Than Force, virtually nobody besides maybe Anders Algren, Ian Dunbar, and Roger Mugford, nobody was using food. Maybe a few others that I don't know of, you know. Later on came some breeches like John Fisher, John Rogerson, David Appleby, and later Americans as well. One of them, Karen Pryor, everybody knows, of course, used food. But in 1984, very, very few people used food. And now it's like you cannot do anything without food.
Yeah.
Everything has to be food. You even have, we didn't have bags like now. Now you can buy bags, smart bags you put around for to have your treats, you know.
Yeah.
And if a dog owner these days doesn't have a bag full of treats and maybe 2 whistles, 3 clickers, 2 kongs, and some collars to choose between, with a couple of harnesses there in the stock, then that dog owner cannot do anything. You know, I'm not criticizing anyone special. I'm just you know, observing and reporting what I observe.
Mm-hmm.
I see that everywhere I go, when I go for a walk where I live, there is a big kind of a big walk you can take 7.5 kilometers, and it's favorite place for joggers and dog owners to go. And I see dog owners are absolutely amazing, you know.
Yeah.
They go like sometimes I think they go to war, you know. They have belts around with them, all the equipment. They cannot do anything without equipment.
Yeah.
And I remember that when I went out with my dog, it was just me and my dog, you know. That's what it should be, in my opinion, of course, but we are all different. So
Natalie had a question about scent detection in particular, but that ties into this topic, which is you kind of challenged us to use less food in our scent detection. And her question was, why? What's the advantage to not using food?
Okay. No, it's not advantage of using food. You use food when it's necessary. But if there is an inflation in food as well, then maybe there comes a time where first food doesn't work. Because, I mean, I can get food for so much, why should I work for food now, you know? And the second one is that food can also overshadow. There is a phenomenon in learning theory called overshadowing, when one stimulus is so strong that overshadows all the others kind of disappear, okay? So if you take a treat in your hand, a very good treat, and you say to see it, to give the treat, see it, give the treat, that's fine. If you do that 2, 3, 4, 5 times. If you continue with the treat, then the treat is going to overshadow all your other stimuli. If you ask Wolfie then, what is the signal that you get to sit? Oh, it's a treat that goes up in there, you know. Oh, yes, because my owner says sit. Does yours? I don't know, never noticed. Because it's overshadowed, you know. And the same, even hand movements maybe don't mean anything, because if there is no treat, the smell, remember that. You say, oh, but the hand would always be there, you know. Yeah, the hand is visual signal, okay. If the smell is too strong, Wolf is here, I do my hand, but there is no smell. You see, there is no smell moving. Now I take a treat. Oh, the smell is moving, and then you see it. You understand?
Yeah.
So that is my concern with one of the concerns of using too much food. The other concern is, of course, that the day you don't have food, what are you going to do?
Well, do you think that the food overshadows the relationship even?
Yes.
Like, if I use food to get my dog to do everything I want, then there's no bond.
Yes.
Do you think that?
Yeah, I think so. I think there has to be a kind of balance in that, really, really deep balance, you know. If you go out with with the girl that you're dating and always to the absolutely best restaurant, best caviar, champagne, lux, salmon, everything, and 1 day, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. In the end, and music and all that. In the end, that overshadows everything. What do you talk about, you guys? I don't know. We eat.
What happens if you have to go to McDonald's once?
Yeah.
Is she no longer your girlfriend?
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe the thing overshadows the. You don't have anything together. What have you done together? You have eaten and eating and drinking. That's what you've done, you know. I'm not saying that you should not take your date to a
nice restaurant. Yeah,
of course.
You hear that, Natalie? No more nice restaurants.
Of course, you should take your date to a nice restaurant, be romantic, and all that. But imagine now, in philosophy, we like to reduce arguments to the absurd, you know.
Yes.
And now let's reduce this to the absurd as well. in the end, imagine what is your relationship after, oh, we've been dating now for 6 months or 1 year. What have you done? We eat and drink.
We got fatter.
We get fatter. What you talk about? Talk. We don't even know. The music is too loud. We don't talk. You know. So, but of course, it's not. Let's not go to the other extreme, because I know some people are already thinking that so
just stop using no food anymore.
No
ever.
food. Never come with flowers to your date, or no, or chocolate. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that everything has to have the right balance again. You know, I'm a biologist, and I really believe that the whole universe depends on balance. If things are well balanced, then we have life. Life has a chance. Otherwise, we die. You know. And the same with the relationships with our dogs, or with our dates, or whatever it is. You know, there has to be a balance. Yes.
I have a lot of students who believe that if they stopped using food, that their dog would not do anything with them anymore.
Probably yes, and probably they're right, because there are studies actually that show that, even worse than that, there are studies that show that if you have focus on food as a reinforcer, food, reinforcer. Okay? Now you take the reinforcer out. You know what happens?
What?
Aggressive behavior.
Yes. Really?
Yes. There are several studies that show that, not with dogs, with other species, but I have no reason to believe that it will not be applicable to humans and dogs as well.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So actually, reinforcers can lead to aggressive behavior. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Not directly, but indirectly, because you remove them.
Yeah, that is interesting. So let's say I have one of these dogs. I have a dog that I've used food their whole life for everything, and I'm afraid, and justly so, that when I remove the food, there's nothing there. What is my first step to regaining my relationship with my dog?
How old is the dog?
Let's say the dog's 6 years old.
That's a bit too late.
Really, it's gone. It's lost.
Yeah, it's a bit too late. 6 years, it more or less corresponds to me trying to change you radically now at the age that you have. You know, I will not change you radically. You can do some changes. You can maybe, if you want, if you are prepared to that, if you have long-term benefits that you want to achieve, but it's going to be very difficult.
What if the dog's 2 years old?
Yeah, that you can do. Yeah, and younger, the youngest, the best actually.
So what's my first step then?
The first step is not to abuse the food, you know, and the second is to build a relationship, because you do things together. For instance, you go for a long walk, you experience things together, you do searching, you know. You can even use searching to bluff, because you hide the things and the other cannot find them without you, and then leads you close by, and then you are the one that finds it, you know. Something, for instance, where there is food, but it doesn't need to be food. I use that very often with my dogs. I bluffed, so I wanted them really, when they were in trouble, to look at me. So I'm sure that at the same time they looked at me like, wow, that guy has a nose, an amazing nose, because he always can detect the thing. Of course I couldn't. I just put it there.
Yeah.
It was bluff, everything. But yes, food, I mean, really, the example I gave before, which is a bit absurd, with our spouses, partners, whatever you want to call, I think that it really applies. Of course, we should go out with them and have good times, romantic times.
Maybe I should stop taking you out to these nice restaurants that you've been visiting.
Well, yeah, but not tonight, okay?
Yeah.
No, but look, our relationship is not because of food, because not at all. I mean, I know people, the only thing I do with them, and you probably know friends too, or whatever you want to call them. The only thing you do is once a month or twice a month or whatever. You go to a nice restaurant, you eat good food, you talk, you crack some jokes, and that's it. And then you go home. And then you have others, like me, for instance. You see once a while, and sometimes we have good food, sometimes we don't. I'm not complaining about the food that you have served. Sometimes we go to the pool bar and have pretzels and cheese, you know. But we have a good relationship, you know. And why? Because it's not based on food, basically, you know. of course, food is important, and other things are also important. To have fun is important. Actually, what creates strong bonds is experiencing strong things together, strong experiences. That creates bond with animals as well. If everything is easy and is good and crack a joke and so on, those things you forget. But you don't forget the things that the hard times. Look, when I came here to St. Louis, the tornado there, you saw at the workshop, there were two persons there that were that survived the tornado with me.
Yes.
And Wolfie.
Yes.
And you know what? I don't even care about what opinions they have about dog training. Probably they have completely different opinions of mine. I don't care. I talk to them. I like them. We give one another a hug. We have something together that goes beyond whatever food we could have had, or even whether we agree on details of dog training or not. And that, I think, we can develop with our dogs too.
So if you want a better relationship with your dog, go to somewhere where there's a tornado.
Or tsunami, or
earthquake.
Yeah. No, do things. Do instead of just you don't develop a strong bond with your dog by just sitting on the couch and petting the dog, which many people actually think they do, and feeding the dog. Oh, so feed the dog and pet the dog, feed the dog. No, by doing things together. And the things that might even be a little bit unpleasant. If it rains, that's fine. If it snows, that's fine. If it's cold, if it's hot, you don't die of that, if you die, the problem is solved, right? And if you don't die of that, then you really come up stronger.
Yeah.
That is what I will recommend people to do. Do things also with your friends. It's not only with we don't do anything with our friends, but this is maybe a generation thing again.
Yeah.
We don't do anything. We talk on FaceTime and Skype and Messenger, but we don't do anything together with them. How can we have a strong relationship with people? We don't do anything.
Well, and I was thinking about that recently too, which is that we live in such a good time that it's like the stressful experiences are gone. Yes. We're not in a famine. We're not in the middle of a war zone. No. There's nothing so traumatic to bond us together.
Right. The most exciting that happens for most dog owners is when they go to Facebook and see someone using the wrong color.
Yeah.
And that is the most absolutely upsetting that happens in their day, Yeah. And I don't think that is healthy in the long term.
Yeah.
Not for our bodies and not for our minds, for sure. I might be wrong. I don't know.
Well, we've been talking for a while now.
We have.
It was really fun, interesting conversation.
So it's now that we're going to have good food and
pool. Yes, pool? Yeah. Right. The reinforcer, right? Yeah. Or is that a reward?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know, but it's good anyway. And we have to make sure that Natalie wants to come, really, because she wants to come.
Yes, yeah. Do you want to leave us with any last thoughts, last words?
Just be yourselves. Continue seeking knowledge. There are. Remember that the truth is an error not yet discovered, right? It's a thing that we say in science. And just be happy, really, because be yourself. I used to say, and I'm known for the sentence, life is great. But I really mean life is really a great thing. It's an amazing thing, because there are many more ways of being dead than being alive.
Yeah.
And imagine we are alive here.
Yeah.
So let's enjoy life. Let's do the best we can, and also important, let's give room to other people. What is exciting about other people is that they are not us. They are different, right?
Yeah.
So let's not kill them because they are different. I don't mean kill literally, but kill is in spirit.
Yeah.
Let's cherish the differences and develop and evolve together. And thank you very much for having me in St. Louis, Missouri. And Wolfie.
Yeah, Wolfie. So if you want to learn more about Ethology or any of the stuff that Roger's talking about, check out his online learning platform at ethology.eu. They have courses in ethology and canine, all sorts of things. It's a really great, I did the whole program. I'm a tutor there. It's a really great program. And thank you to our patrons on Patreon for supporting this. You guys make it possible for us to interview very interesting guests like this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, share it on social media, and let your friends know that they can also support getting access to this kind of stuff for $1 a month. So thank you guys so much.